And stuck it in his mustache. And about 15 minutes later, all of a sudden, Grandpa awakes and starts sniffing around like, what is that smell? It stinks in here. The living room stinks. So he gets up from his chair and he runs into the family room hoping to escape the smell. He's in the family room, he takes another big inhale, and he says, the family room stinks. This smell is following me. I got to get out of here. So he races out of the family room, through the living room, into the kitchen, hoping to once again escape the smell, takes another big inhale, and says, the kitchen stinks. It must be something in this house. So he said, I got to get out of here. So he makes a beeline to the front door, opens up the screen door, steps outside, hoping to breathe in some fresh air, takes another big inhale, and says, the world stinks. But the reality was, it wasn't the living room that was stinking. It wasn't the family room or the kitchen that was stinking. It wasn't even the world. What was stinking is what was attached to him. And oftentimes we have things that are attached to us that are stinking and funky and rancid. And what happens is when you've been smelling long enough, all of a sudden your nose begins to adjust to the scent, so much so that you don't even smell yourself anymore. But everyone else around you can smell your scent. Everyone else around you can see your issue. How many of us walk around in relationships and we are just oblivious to our own selves? That even when our partner points out what's wrong with us, we can't see it, we don't acknowledge it, we don't do any of that. But your partner is nothing more than your mirror. Your partner is the one who shows you who you are, because when you look with these physical eyes, you can only look outward, right? So if we're looking outward towards our partner and our partners are looking outward towards us, they can see things that you don't see. And so the type of vision that you need is more of a spiritual vision. You need more of a discernment. You need to use your mind and to begin to reflect on who you really are and what issues you're bringing into the relationship. Because if you don't work on you, you will continue to have communication problems. So as it relates to communicating better, the number one way to solve communications in your marriage is to work on you. Stop trying to work on the relationship. Because if you continue to try to work on the relationship, you're working on something outside of yourself. And if you're working on something outside of yourself, no true change happens. There's a quote that says, men are often anxious to change their circumstances, but are unwilling to change themselves. They therefore remain bound. We want to change our finances, but are unwilling to change ourselves. We want to change our careers, but we're unwilling to change ourselves. We want to change our marriages, but we're unwilling to change ourselves. And therefore, we remain bound. So you can work on something outside of yourself, but all you're doing is adjusting and manipulating and trying to fix behaviors, if you will. But it is not until you begin to work on the core of who you are that the behaviors will ultimately change. So in our marriage, with all of our communication issues, when I began to self-reflect, look inwardly, and begin to work on me, all of a sudden the relationship began to change. So you don't like what your partner's doing, you don't like what they're saying, and so your number one objective is to change him, to change her. And you will never do it because no one has ever successfully been able to change their partner. The only way that you can truly change your partner is to change you. Because when you change you, you force your partner to adjust to your change, thus making them change. So if they do something you don't like, rather than saying, stop doing this, stop doing that, stop the reaction or the response that you typically have. Create another one. Because when you create another reaction and behavior, you're forcing them to deal with you in a different way. For instance, if you constantly have arguments, as an example, and your philosophy is, you know what, I've got to have the last word, because I've got to be right. And you know that once you do that, if he has that same posture, or if she has that same posture, the conversation never ends. The argument never ends. But when you begin to stand on principle and create certain relational codes of ethics within yourself and make a decision as to what you're not going to do or what you're going to begin to do, they have no option but to respond differently or to act differently because a change took place within you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And when that happens, it changes the dynamic of the entire relationship, right?
And I told you a little bit about my marinade that, I mean, and I only told you a little bit, but I came from severe dysfunction. So as I got to learn my husband over the years, I realized, man, he wasn't really all that bad after all. Because a lot of he's very expressive in his face. And I would just take that as an insult. Like, don't look at me, like, you're gonna look at me like that? And that means you want war, And I didn't realize that that was just the way that he spoke. And a lot of times because I was oversensitive. And that was an issue that I had to work on. Of course I'm oversensitive. I've seen the worst. Violence in my home. Everybody wants to attack everybody. That's just the way that I grew up thinking. Like, this is the way it is. People will attack you. So if he even looked wrong, he had to come with like no expression whatsoever on his face and approach me on things, especially issues of concern. Because I felt attacked because I was oversensitive. Now how crazy is that? That he's got to tiptoe like he's on eggshells to approach me on something that might really be a relevant issue that he wants to talk about. And so it was a tug of war with him that he didn't know when he could approach me. He didn't know if I was going to be hot or cold. That's how he was seeing me. I was seeing him as just attacking me always, just always being negative and always, why are you always coming at me like this? Why are you questioning me? I felt that him questioning me was an attack. He just wanted to know. He just wanted to know the answer to the question. So that's what we're talking about with retrospect, looking within. And I had to take a step back and say, I need to work on me. I have some issues. If I'm honest with myself, I didn't come from the best marinade. I didn't have the greatest lesson. Nobody showed me how to be a wife. My mom left my father when I was 9 or 8 or 9. So what did I have to hold on to teach me the lessons of being a wife, to teach me how to communicate? If I stopped right there, my education, my learning, how to communicate and how to interact with people, where would I be? How could I move forward if I never learned how to communicate with my spouse? It wouldn't work. So whatever your issue is, you really need to take a look at that and start working on that thing and plucking that thing out. Wherever the root started, you can figure out where the root is, but you need to pluck that thing out so that you can move forward. It's not even so much about your spouse, it's really about personal growth. Because as you grow, then you can easily grow and mesh together with your spouse.
Now, as it relates to this formula, this is the communication formula. I want to know, and I want you to be transparent, because it's only me and you in the room. I want to know who struggles with words in terms of knowing what to say. Now, this could mean many different things. This could mean, well, first of all, listen, when dealing with communication, men and women communicate differently, right? It's been said that generally speaking, men are given or have the capacity to communicate 10,000 words a day. And women have the capacity of communicating 25,000 words a day. And so if you're working a job, it is said, the guy goes on the job, he's dealing with his boss, he's dealing with the coworkers, he's dealing with, customers, and so he's used up pretty much all 10,000 of his words. So by the time he comes home, he's empty. There's nothing left in him. Meanwhile, the wife, who's used that same 10,000 words, possibly 15,000 words, has another 10, 15 stored up in her, wanting to communicate. Or if that mother is if she's raising those children, now she's in baby land all day long, right? And so there's no adult that she's communicating with. She has no outlet. So she has 25,000 words bottled up on the inside of her, and he's empty, she's full, and now we have problems. So a lot of times the complaint is he just has nothing to say. He just doesn't know what to talk about. Or all she does is nag, and all she does is talk, and as soon as I walk in the house, this. And so isn't that interesting? How God created us completely different. So we have to learn how to communicate in an effective way. So as it relates to that area in terms of words, let me ask the men. How many men have an issue with knowing how to truly communicate with their partners? Okay, very good. Very good. Now, let me give you a principle. Let me give you a technique. All right, because I'm going to give you how-tos. We can talk philosophy all day long, but I'm going to give you some instructions. All right, it is said statistically that the average couple communicates 5 minutes a day. Now, what do I mean by that? Because I do call my wife throughout the day. You know, when we're home, we're with the kids, we're watching TV, we do communicate. But in terms of having quality communication, where it is uninterrupted, where our attention isn't divided, it is said that we generally have 5 minutes of communication. That's a problem. Because if you're working a job, 8 hours, 10 hours a day, you're communicating with everybody else for 8 hours. So you're developing relationships outside of your home, building intimacy, and we'll explain what that means later, outside of your home, strong bonds and strong relationships and commonalities outside of your home. But when you come home, it feels like I'm living with a stranger, because we really don't communicate. So the principle of the technique is this: you want to reserve, to start a minimum of 15 minutes of communication.